Hey, everybody. Welcome to another virtual astrology club. I am Claire Moon, and this is going to be a forecast for the month of August 2023. I did just look down and check my calendar to make sure I was saying the right month. I don't know, maybe you don't notice if you're not super into my channel. But two things. I don't know if I sound congested, but I am. I'm a little sick today, so I apologize to everyone who is maybe looking for my usual dense bake of a forecast. Usually I do, I sit here for 2 hours. Today, I think it's going to be a little bit more bare bones. I'm just going to do what I can do. I think it's a cold classic, like old timey, pre-panny summer cold. So I don't think it's serious, but yeah, I'm a little peaked today. This episode is brought to you by apple juice. I have juice, and speaking of Venus retrogrades can be about experimenting with things that are yummy sometimes. And I had some ginger ale in there, and then I put apple juice on top of it. And welcome to Flavor Town, everybody. We got a new one. It was cider. It was cider when it was still cold out. Now I might be mixing apple juice with ginger ale. That shit is awesome. This episode also brought to you by Not Beige Cave. I said this last time, but now we have paintings. So it's so nice. I got a plant. I got like my altar. Like we getting like things set up. Like I love it. I have a standing situation. That's why I'm like, yeah. So, I feel like I can go back to just wearing, for Leo time, I'm being a little bit more fun, but now that I got that being an interesting background, I can go back to wearing black t-shirts and my flannel like a normal person. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. If you want to share, which side is it on? We got a live chat. So if you want to check in with the live chat, I'm not super good at keeping up with it during the forecasts, but I'll do my best. And especially, I'm curious actually. So before we get into new business, old business, actually current business, very current business, the Venus retrograde situation. We will talk about that quite a bit today. And because we got to talk about the Cazimi, we got to talk about a few things with Venus. What have y'all been noticing with this one? I don't know if it's just me. I'm not in a Venus profection year at all by any accounts, at least not the luminary ascending ones. And I've been noticing Venus themes just like left and right. Like I feel like every 5 minutes, something Venus retrograde happens. And a lot of it's fun and fine and not a problem. This, however, is a demonstration of Venus retrograde for me insofar as, for me, Venus rules my ninth house of mass communication and astrology, both of which I'm trying to do right now. And as Venus is retrograde, retrogrades, one of the things they can do is be inconsistent. They can cause inconsistency. So what for me in my ninth house is inconsistent? Well, my ability to mass communicate and my ability to astrology. So I'm going to try to do less things better today. We'll see if it still manages to take me 2 hours. I'm going to try to not be here as long today. So again, apologies if you're usually looking for the dense bake. I've been getting a lot of really nice feedback on that though. So one last final note before we go over to the clock. Thank you everybody for all the kind feedback on these. I've been having people tell me lately that they like the forecasts, and people have been sharing how they have been getting the most out of them, which was really interesting too. So I wanted to share that. Using them being like, usually I do have, and it's probably not today, but usually I have such like a detail oriented, I like to go through each week, and there's a lot of stuff each week, and it's kind of too much to just, I think, listen to this whole forecast. And, even me, like, I can't remember all of that, even though I said it, it's, in here, out here, and then it's gone. But it's good to check in. So that's what people were saying that they were doing, was more checking in with the recording that'll be on here afterwards, like every week or halfway through the month, just to see how things are going, see if themes are resonating. And it's also really helpful too, because I feel like having a half-month check-in, like, and I do this too, I re-listen to the astrology podcast forecast. Usually I re-listen to it at least once every month, usually after the month is over, just so I can reflect and be like, oh yeah, did this stuff fit? So I think that's how to best use longer form content, is that it is so dense that it actually helps to check back in with it. So that's the feedback that I've been getting from people. So hopefully that helps you. Let me check in with this chat here before we jump to the screen. Who do we got? We got Susie. Hey, Susie. Yeah, Susie already knows I'm sick. I saw Susie the other day. So yeah, it's just like, I could have fought the Venus retrograde thing. Like, I thought about just trying to, power through it, but I instead compromised and said, I'm just going to do less. So don't try to fight the retrogrades. Fionn Cleary is here. We got, I'm going to say your name wrong, so I apologize, but I'm going to try. Agnieszka. That's nice. I love saying people's names because I think it's important, like energetically, for energetic reasons that I can't explain. Tracy is here. Welcome back, Tracy. So Agnieszka's seeing the Venus retrograde more around themselves or around others than themselves. Yeah. And that's usually I feel like that's the case a lot of times too, especially if it's not your profected Lord of the year. A lot of times it's stuff happening to people around you that's not necessarily affecting you. So you still witness the weather, but you're not having it maybe be as loud in your own life. I think that really demonstrates not only the timing techniques, a lot of them like annual perfections, in that all planets are not on or loud all at the same time in our charts. But that also speaks, then it explains why. It's like, well, why is one retrograde, I'm noticing things, and then another, maybe I'm not nearly as much. Like, does that mean astrology is fake? And on the contrary, it actually, I think, props up a lot of our timing techniques. Don't apologize for a hard name. Part of the reason I have a fake name is because my real name, like one of the reasons I still have my pseudonym, Claire Moon, it's not my real name. And y'all can see, I'm gonna actually show you. It's kind of funny. Like, my real name is such a pain in the ass. There's so many vowels. It's actually right up here at the top, because I put my real name on my Astro Gold license. I've actually had people like warn me. They're like, hey, your real name is up there. It's so sweet. And I'm like, thank you. I'm okay. I don't care that much. I'm more going for plausible deniability. I'm probably going to change it to that eventually. But so I get you. But like, also, I think everyone should just respect that there's a bunch of different names out there, and like, they're all gonna, be maybe easier or harder for us to say, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. That was also my thing in pharmacy too. Like, I would have like pharmacy students just completely not even try to say a patient's name if it wasn't a name they were familiar with saying. And I used to be kind of hard. I was like, can you at least fucking try? Can you like ask the person how to pronounce it and respect them maybe, even if it makes you look like you don't know anything. So I wouldn't let my students get away with that. I made them interact with this whole name situation. Anyway, whoa. Big digression. I'm using all my apple juice energy. So I'm going to get into the business here. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your Venus stuff. Please, if you're listening to this afterwards, share your Venus stuff below if you're comfortable doing so. And if you are getting help from this today, please hit like, subscribe, all the things. I have a newsletter. You can sign up for my newsletter below as well. That gives you all the events for the month. Basically where to find me, when, where, and why. And if I do discount codes, P.S. everybody listening to this, Leo stuff. Let's just make an offering to Venus. Usually my senior citizen discount code, thank you 10, just like everybody. And that one's easy to remember. I also have the astrology podcast, that discount. So both of them are 10%, thank you 10, or astrology podcast. Use those discounts at checkout for 10% off. If you're listening to this video, please do that. if you're going to book with me. So what else is old business? The only other old business thing I really wanted to discuss today was this Mars-Saturn opposition that we have here. That it happened last week, more on like July 19th, 20th. It was really, I mean, the moon was pinging it at that point too, but it felt pretty grindy for me. It was me having moved. I was trying to do the Mars action of getting items into their new place in the new home, and feeling overwhelmed and not really having like a clear plan in Pisces, like the larger view, the structure and the larger view place was not there. So I was kind of just spinning my Marshall tires. And that was again like 10 days ago. It has since improved. I've made a little bit more headway. That being said, it's still been pretty slow and grindy with this. I don't know if other people have been experiencing across their Pisces and Virgo places, because Mars is the energy of going and taking action and getting shit done. And Saturn also likes to get shit done, but it's very slow and it says no and it stops and it's delays. So very different energy. It's the classical brakes and gas, or at the same time. A little bit grindy, can be frustrating. Also, I mean, the combination of this, if we do find that sweet spot of balance, it is just the ability to grind through a lot of work over time. So if that is how life has been feeling, that's what's been up. It's going to continue to be up. Mercury just got here, so that helps quite a bit. Mercury just got here a couple days ago. Yesterday? It just got here yesterday. And now Mars has some help. And Mars, I mean, now they're separating by degree, still a sign-based opposition, but at least not by degree. So it'll just, probably improve from here on out. I'm not going to talk about Mercury retrograde yet. We will, all that aside. So I want to cover that for old business. I think that's it though. Let me just check my notes. Let's see. Let's do I had last thing, correction in my newsletter, my dates of interest. I don't know why I had August 10th as the Mercury entering pre-shadow period. Mercury enters their pre-shadow period on August 3rd. So if you got my newsletter and you saw that date and you're like, Claire, go home, you're drunk. I wasn't drunk, but I did make a typo. So with that, the dates of interest, I have August 1st, tomorrow, 2 days from now, Aquarius full moon. On the 3rd, Mercury enters pre-retrograde phase or period. On the 13th, we've got the Venus Cazimi. 16th, we have a Leo new moon. The sun enters Virgo on the 23rd. Mercury stations retrograde that same day, which is very interesting. I have a whole idea about what that could be. Then Mars goes into Libra on the 27th. Uranus stations on the 28th. And then Pisces full moon on the 30th. So those are our special dates. They are listed down below if you want to copy pasta them anywhere. Yeah. Oh, I did have a really explicit Mars-Saturn opposition anecdote. Trying to get the lawn mowed at this new place. The lawnmower broke as the moon was applying to Mars in Virgo, and it set back the lawn mowing thing like a week. And it was really funny because it was across my partner's 6th and 12th, and in the 12th house, it's like Saturn. And the problem, we don't know what's broken. We don't understand what happened. It's a freak like accident. Thank God nothing bad happened, as lawnmowers can be a little dangerous. But it's a mystery. What's wrong with it? And that's totally, the Saturn, the delay is in the 12th house of this person. It's like, what happened? So that's my story. So I suspect then by the time that we get the moon coming around again to that same spot this month, I expect things will be resolved. So I will let you know if that prediction comes true. Okay. Let's see. Looking at my notes. Yeah, let's talk about this Aquarius full moon. We just before this had a new moon in Cancer. So actually, let's start there because I like to look at a lunation as a whole piece. So Cancer new moon, that happened on the 17th of July. So think back to the 17th, and in your Cancer part of your chart, what things were being seeded or intended upon, what maybe internal realizations were you having or understanding about this part of your chart, and what's needed to feel comfortable, safe, healthy, nurtured, supported. Think back to the 17th. Now, whatever we kind of intended upon, and maybe we're thinking too, new chapters of growth here in this place in your chart. What would you like to grow and support and protect so that it grows? And then 2 weeks later, now we've got a bit of a response to that intention in this Aquarius full moon that's going to be happening in 2 days on August 1st. So this is, Saturn can't see it. So that makes things a little bit disjointed in terms of like, yeah, the moon is maybe having some really rational thoughts about the Aquarius part of your chart, but the ability for the moon to get resourcing to reconcile those thoughts or figure out what to do with that realization. Or let's say you're trying to do the stereotypical, I've been working on this thought or this whatever for 2 weeks, and now I'm going to share it with people. Maybe there's something about that sharing process that is a little delayed or under-resourced for some reason, or just doesn't quite feel like 100% ready for some reason. Let's see, what else is my notes? So what was I saying? Cancer new moon. Oh yeah. What systems in Aquarius can we design to make it happen? So whatever we intended on with the Cancer new moon, as far as what we want to grow now in Aquarius, and that part of your chart, maybe totally unrelated, but somehow related, what systems need to be in place there? So for instance, I'm just going to use myself as an example. I've got Cancer in the 6th house of my health and wellness, and I've got Aquarius in my 1st house of mind, body, spirit. That one's pretty straightforward because it's like, I was intending on, hey, what do I actually need to do to feel good and take care of myself every day? Very straightforward 6th house stuff. And then the response to that is, yes. So in your general circumstances, when it comes to how I carry myself through the world in the 1st house, what do I need to do to make my health how I want to make it? It is really up to me, and having boundaries and systems and limitations with myself so that I don't overwork myself or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, let's say you're a Virgo person. Let's just change the chart. It's funny. I use Virgo a lot, I think, because both of my brothers are Virgo risings. So they're always on my mind with that. So I'm always thinking about examples in their lives. So let's say you're a Virgo rising and you had a new moon in your 11th house of Cancer, your hopes, dreams, aspirations. We'll take that angle. And maybe you're intending on like, okay, this is something I really want. I aspire to be this thing or do this thing. Then in the full moon in your 6th house in Aquarius, this is almost like similar to my example a little bit now in reverse. What daily duties need to happen for that aspiration to be realized? Or maybe you've got too much going on in your life and your aspirations aren't being met because you've got too many obligations or duties or burdens in the 6th, and some need to be let go or released or, reimagined such that we can actually do the 11th house things. Or maybe you've got these friends, a group of friends that you really want to grow in relationship with, but in the 6th house day-to-day life, you're realizing like more on August 1st, like, actually, I just don't have time. I literally don't have time for friend groups that I love. So then what are you going to do about it? I guess. I think that's kind of the message. So look to those areas in your chart and see what systems can be put in place. I always think about, structure with Saturnian ruled places with Earth, Capricorn, Saturn. That's more like brick and mortar structures, systems that deal with material world stuff like money. With Aquarius, I'm thinking more like time, blockchain, the various systems that we have that are invisible that run our lives. So we're entering into this. I mentioned that Saturn cannot see the moon. I'm trying to see, who does the moon run into? I thought I made a note of this. Who does the moon run into? I believe they run right into Jupiter. So the next aspect the moon makes after it is full, kind of in my mind, speaks to a little bit of the outcome of the full moon, or how we're going to feel when we are having like this full moon realization, or having the moon shine light on our Aquarius part of our chart. Moon runs into Jupiter. So it's almost like, okay, yep, here's a really rational point of view of what is needed in the Aquarius part of the chart. And then actually the moon is going to run into an encouraging, supportive Jupiter who's saying, okay, if you need help with this and making these adjustments, look to your Taurus place and see what help might be in there as you do the next 2 weeks, and try to, again, make those Cancerian intentions from mid-July come forth. Okay. I think that's what I have for that. Let's see if there's any questions. No, kebabs. You're going to have the full moon right on your Chiron. I always say I'm with Chris Brennan. I would love to blow up Chiron. It's not very accepting. It's not very Zen of me, but yeah, I am Chiron. It's going to be on my Jupiter forever. Aries is just the longest sign in the world, isn't it? So God bless America. Full moon on your Chiron. Good luck. I will say, like, the more I do watch Chiron, the more I see it show up as actually really very healing experiences. It really can be healing. It's just, I think we think about healing and we think about like the sigh of relief at the end of the healing process, but we don't often think about all of the discomfort that goes into that eventually relieving healing process. It's kind of like how when a scab is healing, it itches around it because the skin is being kind of pulled and all of these things and nerves are being activated. And so the skin gets itchy as it's healing. So I think that speaks to kind of the discomfort with Chiron and Chiron aspects and things and transits. But on the other side of that, I think there can be some relief. So hopefully that is what it is for you. I've been having some not shitty Chiron transits over the last year. So, actually speaking of Chiron, holy shit, we got the person right here. Fionn Cleary, they are like an expert about that, about Chiron. They actually are working on like looks like, well, they've already done it, I believe, like a really cool theater thing where they are an actual centaur given Centaur comedies. So please go check out Fionn Cleary's Chiron Centaur show stuff. I love it. I think I was going to link that last time. Oh, I linked the link tree. Yeah. On last month's or my Q&A. One of the last things I did. Anywho's let's go back to nope, not my Spotify. Let's go back to the clock. So just a couple days after this, we get our full moon, and then we're going to get Mercury entering into their shadow period or their pre-retrograde period. Eventually on the 23rd, Mercury is going to station retrograde here. And before it does, though, it's going to slow down. So it's eventually going to station. It's going to station, I think is it at 15 degrees? No, that's not it. But when it comes back and it stations direct, eventually it's going to station direct at 8 degrees of Virgo. So when Mercury gets to 8 degrees of Virgo before the whole thing, this is where we mark that pre-retrograde period. So this is where Mercury, that story will start. Mercury will start to lose speed over the next couple weeks here, and then we will see them eventually station. So start watching Mercury's story here. I love this period of time with Mercury and Mars in Virgo. This is just such like the crafts person with a very like vigorous apprentice that's able to do all of their work for them. Like, so if you've got things to do, like just practical, tedious stuff to grind through, I'm going to continue. I have been, and I will be continuing to deep clean. I think it's a really good time for that. So I'm really enjoying this. We're only going to have like, eventually the sun will be in here too, but there's only like 3 hours of time where the sun and Mars are together in Virgo, both being received by Mercury. And then Mars gets out of there. It's on the 27th of August. I actually have the 3 hours I will mention in a little bit, but on August 27th, Mars is going to get out of here like right after the sun gets in. That being said, I'm like, oh, should I try to do something cool during that 3 hours? do I have any like craft projects I can do? So if you do on August 27th, that's probably a good day to try to get some craft projects done. Ooh, I know of one. I was actually just thinking, this episode is brought to you by Mentholatum. Not a friend of the show, but a friend of me. My favorite OTC product, one of them, besides Sudafed, besides phenazopyridine, is Mentholatum, which is really just camphor, menthol, and like Vaseline, like petrolatum. Yeah, that's literally it. Petrolatum. Oh, they got fragrance in here. See, because what I realized, my art project or my craft project, I'm gonna make some of this shit. I actually have all the ingredients and the technology and the skill. I just have to do some math. But I'm allergic to fragrance. Dang, I just discovered. Oh, dang, so many discoveries. You're witnessing a Venus retrograde thing happening right now. So I love this shit, right? This is so funny. God. So Venus is what we love. It's what we value. I value mentholatum. When Venus is retrograde, engaging with what we love, engaging with what we enjoy can become difficult, and there can be interruptions. There can also be insights and breakthroughs, especially with the Venus-Uranus squares that are happening, which we're going to talk about. But I'm having one right now because I'm reading the inactive ingredients in here, and there's fragrance, and I am allergic to that shit. I'm allergic to artificial fragrance. So here I've been slathering myself with this, doing a bad job. And at the same time, I realized I can actually make this myself, which is the perfect solution. So there, not even a problem. But also that makes me sad. Why do people got to put fragrance in everything? It's literally camphor and menthol. Like I can't smell anything except for camphor and menthol. What else do they got to put in there? See, that's what pisses me off. If I were a dictator, now you're seeing my Aquarius rising coming through. When I am a dictator someday, I'm going to make it illegal to just put fragrance in everything. I digress. Okay. Values, Venus. All right. So we get Mercury entering their pre-retrograde period. And then, let's see. Da-da-da. I guess the next thing I want to talk about is the Venus square Uranus things on the 9th. That is the second of 2. So I'm going to show us here, square Uranus. So the first one was July 2nd. So what is this now? Venus square Uranus. There's going to be 3 of these squares. Lot of discussion about these out there in astrology land. Uranus can be kind of 2 buckets of things, 3 buckets. Let's do 3 buckets. So one of them is inconsistency, instability, chaos, interruption, disruption. Of course, we know, I always say it with me. Sometimes solutions are disruptive. So sometimes if there's not disruption, that means solutions aren't happening. So just disruption on its own isn't inherently good or bad, right? It depends on what is being disrupted. So consider the context. Consider the context of, in the past so far, Taurus and Leo in your life, and what is being disrupted there. And could that be a good thing? In another bucket, we also have insights and breakthroughs, sudden insights, sudden breakthroughs. And then the third bucket, experimentation, innovation. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the other bucket. insights, innovations, breakthroughs, they all kind of go together, experimentation. So, all of those themes might come up here. And then as it relates to Venus and as it relates to your Taurus and Leo spaces. So squares themselves, already about change and adjustment. Uranus, about change and adjustment. And the things that are being changed and adjusted are in the houses that are in Taurus and Leo for you. Also maybe with relationships, somehow bringing in that relational component. Venus also has to do with vices. So if you have unhealthy relationships, like maybe my relationship with juice, I don't know how good it is for my metabolic system for me to be intaking this much sugar, but we'll leave that for maybe the third square. I'm not going to worry about it right now, but think back to what was going on the first week of July and see if there was anything important that happened in your Taurus or Leo spaces. Our next one, which might tie in with this or have similar themes, is August 9th. And now in this one, it's interesting because the first two, both planets were direct. And this one, Venus is retrograde. And the third one, Uranus will be retrograde. So it's like then Uranus themselves experimenting, innovating. Venus retrograde, experimenting, innovating with relationship stuff. So a lot of kind of overlapping, we're getting layers and layers kind of saying similar things. Here, I think the focus on this one is more going to be on the Leo space. What of this change, of these interruptions that are happening, of this reorganization or kind of experimentation that's happening here. Now a little bit more focus, I think, on the changes happening in Leo. Then finally, September 29th. So this third one is quite a bit ways out. We got to wait till Venus goes all the way back to, 12 degrees of Leo, stations, moves direct. And at that time, it'll be September 29th. And now Uranus will be retrograde. And Uranus actually stations retrograde at the end of this month. It's one of the last things we'll talk about today. I tied myself in a knot trying to conceptualize what Uranus retrograde is. So I'll walk you through my fraught mental process with that in hopes that maybe it will give you clarity. But this is the third part of that story. So, zooming out, I think whatever changes are currently happening in your Leo and Taurus places, things are probably not going to feel super settled until after September 29th. So keep an eye on whatever stories are happening. And then, too, sometimes this can be seriously as simple and neutral or just low impact. It can be about, the way that you do your hair in the morning. It can be about, reorganizing the pantry based on like your partner's dietary preferences or something, just making things up. It can be so many different things. So it doesn't have to be like these big, catastrophic, like, my whole relationship is going to never be the same again or something like that. But it can be these smaller adjustments as well. Like I was just I had like a bunch of Libra rising people last week, 2 weeks ago, and it came up more than once about having to make adjustments with their 11th of hopes, dreams, and aspirations and how they were collaborating with other people in the 8th in Taurus. So that's part of their story, is rearranging that stuff. So give yourselves until, I would say, October. Once Venus actually leaves Leo, then, and I think only then, will we have a good idea about what the whole retrograde story was about. Of course, hindsight is 2020. Let's see. I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Oh, wow. Reverend Kai would vote for me for dictator. Yay. I actually used to say that to my technicians all the time. Like when I was in pharmacy and I didn't have agency to change anything, because like I've got to go through 5 other people to change anything. I'd be like, well, when I'm dictator, I'm going to do this. And then they'd be like, please vote for me for dictator 2024. It's my cute little Aquarius joke. It doesn't help that my chart ruler is in Sag. It's quite the combination. Sagittarius in my mind is the other dictator. Virgo is like a dictator, but silently. Leo can be a dictator. There's a few of us that I feel like can be little dictators in our own special, our own special little way. I need a coaster. We use coasters in this house. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Kebabs agrees with me on the camphor and the menthol. Yeah, just add something natural. Like I'm not allergic to any, as far as I know, any essential oils. Just put some of those in there. I'm not allergic to lavenders. Put that in there. No, I'm going to make my own. It's actually pretty flipping cool too. A little side note, a little fun past pharmacist life thing. One of my favorite things to compound was similar to this. It was menthol and camphor, but mixed in with triamcinolone or other steroid ointments or creams or things like that. And it's really fun to make because like you get camphor and menthol, which are both solids. One's a crystal and the other is like this brick of stuff. I don't really understand what it is, to be honest. I don't know what camphor is. I should probably look that up. I actually looked up its mechanism today, but I didn't look up what the hell it even was. But they're both solids. And when you put them together, they actually turn into a liquid. And then you mix that liquid, you spatulate it in with whatever cream you have. And it's awesome and super fun. And I should take a video of it and put it on Instagram. Maybe I will. Okay. Let's get back to it. See, I'm winded. I just can't believe it's already Q3. I've got all my forecast notes separated by quarters because they get too long. And we're already halfway through the third quarter of 2023. I cannot believe it. Let's talk about the Cazimi. Oh, the traditional Cazimi. I don't know if anybody remembers like Exhibit from Pimp My Ride. I don't know. I love that show. But there was this meme about like how, they'd be like, oh, hey, I heard you like to sing. So I put in karaoke thing in your car so you could sing while you drive. I feel like this Mercury Cazimi is a great example of that. And I'm going to tell you why, because with the Leo new moon, that's the thing that's interesting to me is we get this Venus conjunct the sun on April 13th. We get Venus Cazimi. And then right after this, we get a Leo new moon. And both of these things are reset buttons. And so I was thinking like, hey, I heard you like resets. It's like, so I have a reset with your reset so you can reset while you reset. I got a Cazimi with your new moon so you can do all of the resetting. It's like that. It's like so nested of resets. So I want you to look at the Venus parts of your chart because anytime there's a Cazimi, and I consider a Cazimi anytime the sun is conjunct a visible planet within 1 degree. The Hellenistic standard is within 1 degree. Medieval is within 17 arc minutes or so. I feel like I've heard other people say slightly different than that, but I use 17. The actual like specific dates for that, we've got traditional Venus Cazimi starting at about 3 p.m. Central Standard Time on the 12th. And then on the 13th, it perfects at 6:15 a.m. Central Standard Time. At 20 degrees of Leo, this is Venus's rebirth. This is the restart of her cycle with the sun. The medieval, the 17 arc minute Cazimi starts at about 2 a.m. CST on the 13th and goes until about 10 a.m. The traditional version ends the night of the 13th at about 9:15 p.m. So traditional Cazimi lasting about a day, medieval version lasting from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time on the 13th. That's important information if you are, you want it down to like the minute, if you're going to be doing certain elections or certain astrological magical things. So that's why I like to give that out. Ooh, Reverend Kai coming in. Camphor is a resin. It's a resin. I still need to figure out what that means. Like, where does it come from? Do you get it from a tree? It must come from a tree. That's probably why I like it, because I love all the tree smells. They're all my favorite. We're just going to keep going back to it. Venus retrograde, my favorite thing. just going to huff this on the internet. But it actually has an interesting mechanism. It like binds to these receptors that are on nerves, basically, that activate nerves that have us coughing and feeling irritated in our mucosal lining. And even just inhaling it and getting some of these molecules of camphor on the receptor on that nerve, it actually stimulates it, but then it desensitizes it. So it acts as like, it just ends up kind of desensitizing these nerves so that you're not feeling as irritated in your lungs. So there you go. Vapo rub, my friends, Vapo rub. That's the other one. All right. Not a friend of the show. Wouldn't it be cool if I would shit my pants if Mentholatum reached out to me and gave me like a coupon. Please give me a coupon. Just kidding. I don't want it anymore. It is fragrance. Okay. Leo new moon. So the other point I wanted to make too. So Venus Cazimi, what is it? It is a reset button. It is a rebirth for Venus. And that's not what I want. That's the next one. Ooh, that's next year's. Look at that. Okay, no, I accidentally went to next year's Venus Cazimi, which looks very interesting, but just kidding. We have to wait a year to talk about that. This is the one we want. Okay. We get a clear vision of our values. We get a clear vision about what our relationship is with our vices or with other people. We get a clear view on this day of what we value, what we actually like. And it might not be a pleasant experience. Like it could be neutral. It could be any of these things. It's not good or bad. So I don't even want to jump there. But what I've been saying, and I mentioned this in my newsletter and probably somewhere else, that I think Venus retrograde so much is about, it shows us our attachments. It shows us what we love. And sometimes it does that by having us experience not getting that thing, not having that thing that we want, that we're attached to, that we have desire for. And so, we can kind of be faced with like how we respond to not getting what we want, and it's so interesting because desire and aversion they come in a pair. It's like a duality pair that can't be separated, very similar to how Mars and Venus are the same. They are a duality pair that we need both. We can't really separate them. And, how is desire and aversion? Because aversion is like, no, I don't want it. Desire is, yes, I want it. How are those two, the two sides of the same coin? Basically, how I guess I would explain this is when we have desire, we are also averse to not having that desire met. So if I really love chocolate, that also means I might have, it doesn't mean I have to, but it might mean I actually have an aversion to not having chocolate in the house. If there's no chocolate in the house, I'm not loving this, right? So with desire, it automatically brings in aversion. And we can explore all of that set of experiences with this Cazimi and getting a clear vision of like, how's this going for me? And maybe you just get validation that everything's going great and you've done a lot of hard work to align your life with what you love and it's working out for you. And the realization might be the opposite, that maybe what my life is not aligned with what I truly value, desire, is healthy for me, whatever it is. So yeah, look for those things on Cazimis. There's nothing to do. I think it's more just like watch your mind, watch yourself, just to gain insight, not to judge, not to have to fix anything, but just to see what is there. Then look also to the Taurus parts of your chart and the Libra parts of your chart. Now, this is the reset button, that it is a rebirth for Venus. It is also a rebirth for Venus, who is a ruler of these places. So it's like, going home, taking a really good shower and having a whole different game plan when you get out of the shower. It can be, if you're looking to change up these places in your life, it'd be a really good opportunity to do that. I think that's all I have to say about that piece. And then we get this really cool Leo new moon that is going to happen on August 16th. So Cazimi on the 13th, new moon in Leo on the 16th. very interestingly, the moon, right before it meets the sun, it is going to meet Venus. So it's going to have this discussion with Venus about what Venus just experienced with the sun, what clear vision she had to offer the sun that the sun could then, bring into the heart with kind of this sense of will, like, yes, this is what I like, and I will make it so, that is very solar. Then, so the moon has that conversation with Venus, and then bebops over to the sun to have another reset, another type of reset, setting new intentions based on all of the cool information we've just gotten about the Leo part of our chart. So that's how I would, consider this period of time is just a really good like this whole week in the middle of August is great for turning over a new leaf in whatever kind of Venusian way you would like. Okay. I think that's all I have to say about that. Right afterwards, so I guess the other thing to note too is we had mentioned what aspect the moon makes right before it meets the sun here. Right after it meets the sun, it then opposes Saturn. So it's almost like get ready to, after you have these couple resets with Leo, with Taurus, with Libra, just with Venusian archetypes in general. Right after that, we have the serious details, facts discussion with ourselves or others, the rational. Okay, what are all the details? We've had this conversation many times now. It's like every time stuff opposes Saturn, I'm going to keep using that same trope over and over again that I've been using about the little details that we got to do and figure out in order to make our bigger structures come alive as we are re-envisioning them or reimagining them in Pisces. So again, here's the moon again, and it's right after we had all these Leo things. So one of the stories that I was thinking of for this that I kind of, if I can find it. Where did I put it? So I'm kind of wondering if, it kind of feels like too, with the sun moving in the same direction. So the moon is having these conversations across Leo, then bringing them into the workshop, basically in Virgo. Then the sun is going to do a similar thing. And then by the 27th, we're going to have the sun move into Virgo. And how I think this is all connected is that, okay, we had the whole Leo stuff. We had the Venus Cazimi, the Leo new moon. The sun itself also, not only did Venus learn a lot and she had her resets, but the sun also has had 30 days recentering itself in its own home. Like imagine imagine you were gone from your own home, maybe with a little respite for a month at a friend's vacation home, but the sun only gets 1 month a year at its own home. And it's so nice probably to come home and just like have your own things and, recenter yourself and regroup and all of that. So now the sun's had a chance to do that. And it's learned a lot about its relational stuff, vices, etc. And now it's coming in here and it's saying, here's all the stuff that I know about what I want to do with my will. I am the sun. And also interesting at that moment, about within a few hours of that, is it? Yeah. Mercury stations retrograde. So the story that I came up with for this whole thing, it's a long point. It's got a bunch of resets. The sun and Venus are learning a bunch of stuff. All the while, Mercury has been working on something of its own over in Virgo, unrelated to Leo, unrelated to other places. It's in its own place, doing its own thing here. I imagine the sun coming in to the workshop, and it's like Mercury's been in the workshop working away. Sun comes in and says, hey, hold up the project. I went on, let's just say I went and did ayahuasca and I got a bunch of thoughts about stuff. And now I want to change the project. I want to change these details. And then Mercury's like, okay. And then Mercury goes retrograde and then goes back to the drawing board and updates the details we need to focus on based on all of these things that Sun and Venus have been learning about. So that was kind of one of the larger story arcs I'm seeing here. So then to whatever we're doing in the eighth, or well, I guess in this eighth, in Virgo, in the Virgo parts of our chart, It's probably going to be revised in August and September. So don't get too attached to all of the things. So like right now, again, I'm going to go back to my own example of moving into this home and trying to put stuff in places that make sense and in a way that is user-friendly and, efficient and strategic. I guarantee you what all this little toiling I've been doing in tedious Virgo, probably going to get revised. So don't get too attached to things, but it's going to be a good revision because it will come after a lot of other knowledge that's coming in. So let's back up. I kind of wanted to do that wider thing, but let's go back to, where were we? The 13th and the 16th. Let's talk a little bit more about this new moon. Is there any, or no, I did say everything I wanted to. And then I did mention, moon then moves into Saturn. So we have a very realistic conversation. Moon is having this conversation with the people in the Virgo workshop about all the little things that need to be done. So on the 18th, this actually looks like the 17th and the 18th of August. Some get shit done days, I would say. We got the moon running into Jupiter by a trine. That's nice. And then it's going to move into Venus. Sorry, no, it's not. Just Jupiter. So August 17th and 18th. It's not like warm and fuzzy, but it's just like looks very effective and constructive at doing a lot of little tasks. And then we're going to get this lunation a cooking. Okay. Then by the 23rd, that's when the next batch of information I wanted to share is. So we get Mercury stationing retrograde, we get the sun entering Virgo, and Mars is just about done here. Now, this is the part I was like, oh, cool. We're going to have sun and Mars in this place being received by Mercury. Like, whoa, how constructive or cool or whatever. Getting this nice trine from Jupiter. However, the sun is opposite Saturn. So these first few days here, actually until the 27th, it's from August 23rd to August 27th, the sun is going to be opposing Saturn here. So this is not a day where I would be like making a bunch of requests, trying to get affirmation from people, trying to get, the green light for things. This is definitely much more of like the analysis kind of still rehashing, that Saturnian kind of restructuring or reimagining that's happening. There's just a lot of pieces that are being shuffled around. It's just not time to go full steam. It's not time to go full throttle yet. If you're familiar with the Julia video online. So when is it time to go full throttle though? Once we get to the 27th, this is where we have these really cute 3 hours. Where did I put it? Did I put it in here somewhere? Yeah, it's on the 27th from 4:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, approximately till 8:18 a.m. So it's just like 3 hours in the very early morning in Central Standard Time on the 27th of August. So if you want to take advantage of that co-presence of Mars and Sun together for a limited time only, very early morning on the 27th. So what is it to have the sun here besides this opposition to Saturn that's temporarily there? The guidance that the sun is going to receive from Mercury will be guidance of reconsideration, reorganizations, all of the resorting of the Virgo space based on, again, what Sun learned while they were in the Leo place. The sun leaving the Venus retrograde to her own devices. That was the other concern that I had too about what it might mean that we had the sun really helping Venus out for this retrograde so far up until this point on the 21st. And up until the 23rd, once we lose the sun from Leo on the 23rd, Venus doesn't have that help anymore, at least not directly, pretty much not at all. So I don't love that. And then a few days later, we get Mars entering Venus's space. And so now Venus is having to try to handle Mars being in her space not having support from the sun. Sun and Mercury are doing something else over here with Saturn, Neptune. I do like a little bit that we've at least got a sign-based trine now between the two, where at least there's some ability, I think, for this to soften Mars's experience somehow. I don't know how. Maybe she's giving Mars some pointers, but it's, pointers that should be Libran, and even Venus at this point, a Venus retrograde in Leo, it's a little bit less concerned with harmony that Libra is, So I don't know how helpful the advice will be coming from Libra at this point for Mars. I don't think it hurts, but it's difficult for Venus. So this whole thing is kind of funky. I don't really know how to feel about it quite yet, but I don't love it. This is not the time to be trying to reconcile with people or doing really sensitive interpersonally stuff. I mean, I can see it fitting, especially with Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde. This is reorganizing a lot of stuff. And sometimes if we've had relationship woes or problems with people and there's a desire to reconcile, some of that can make sense with a retrograde. We're kind of circling around, going back to past things like that. At the same time, these are people of relating and communicating, and they're being inconsistent and they're not being reliable. So this is not the time I would use if we're doing any sensitive interpersonally type of stuff. A lot of August weddings, beware, be careful out there. Though if you've already picked an August wedding, I guarantee it's too late. All right. So we know the sun is applying to Saturn for several days. Mercury is stationing at 21 Virgo on the 23rd until September 15th. So that's a thing. Although in general, Mercury retrogrades, they've been growing on me over the years. Every time I have the same set of challenges. I know what to expect now, so it doesn't bother me as much. And I keep learning so many new things during a Mercury retrograde, especially about technology. It's been so helpful. So especially a Mercury retrograde where they are in their own home, it's like being able to really optimize your own space in a really nice way. So I'm kind of weirdly, not that it's happening at the same time as Venus retrograde. I don't love that, but I'm kind of looking forward to this retrograde. I'm sure I will regret saying this or something later, but part of me is kind of excited for it. Talked about Mars into Libra. I did link below. Adam Elenbaas has some really nice videos about Mars in Libra. So check those out below. There's two of them. There's one about Mars in Libra, and then there's another one that's even more specific. It's Mars combust in Libra, but I figure, there's probably similar, if I remember correctly, there's similar stuff in there. But those two videos I remember being really, really good. So I put them here. Let's see. Talked about Mars being overcome by Venus by signs, so that's helpful. Now, to note too, Venus-Mars in this sign-based sextile, it is only ever a sign-based sextile because they never really meet. By the time, Mars is about to reach her, but then she gets a move in and he never quite catches up, and he's not going to catch up. And one of the viewers pointed this out at the last Q&A, and I don't remember who it was, so I'm sorry if this was you, but they asked me, the whole Venus-Mars interaction that we had earlier in Leo, that was a reformation. They basically don't meet until next year. So this is, as much as she's going to soften Mars in Libra, they never meet by degree. So it's not as strong of a connection as I might say otherwise, but it is something. I think just that week of August 27th to September 3rd, it's a really tricky week. The energy feels more like problem solving, navigating potential challenging interpersonal situations. Conflict for that can be internal or external. It doesn't have to be happening outside of you. It could be internal conflicts about certain things, but it is a tricky week. This is not where I would demand I have a deadline or something like that. I would want things as open-ended as possible, at least until like Mercury stations direct, because even when Mercury stations direct on the 15th of September, Venus at that point is still trying to pick up speed. So she's still, not quite as effective anyway. Yeah, be warned about that week. And then the final two things, Uranus stationing retrograde and Pisces full moon. But first, juice. Hey, Holly. Hey, Nikki. Nice. Good to see you again. Hello, Adam Thomas. Nice to see you as well. Thanks for joining. August is interesting. I've kind of been saying flippantly, unprofessionally for a while now. Like, I'm just like, August sucks. And now I'm being flippant and unprofessional right now, but no period of time is totally good or bad. And it really depends on the chart, and it totally depends on who you are. So this month could be completely innocuous for some people, but for the people that it's not innocuous for, I think it's going to be like a drag. Yeah. Put very, very frankly. Nikki, you did not miss the whole forecast. We're going a little shorter today just because I'm sick. I am not at my best right now. Yeah, full disclosure, like definitely okay. Spirits definitely high. But yeah, I'm not able to do as much. Oh, you had July drama. How was my July? My July was great, but it was crazy. Just a lot. And I think, even when I think busyness, man, like busyness is just like so many planetary transits, I think just result in just overdoing stuff. And then we get irritated and like things fall through the cracks and there's problems. Very similar to how like a planet stationing or a planet in retrograde can just speak to, or moving in apparent retrograde motion, can speak to just loudness and more of it. When Mercury was retrograde, I had so many emails. I almost didn't make it. I had literally over, I think 150 emails over the course of 1 week once. It was wild. Now with Venus retrograde, my social calendar has blown up so much that I have to be careful that I'm not overextending myself so that even if I'm doing stuff I love with people I love, if there's too much of it, too much of a good thing, it's just like, yeah, I'm too tired now because I am old. So yeah, hopefully your August is better, Holly. Hopefully it's happy reshuffling of things. Busyness, I swear, I'm starting to become like having a little bit of a vendetta and against busyness. And I think having a vendetta against busyness is a very privileged kind of point of view because, there are parents with like 5 jobs that, they're going to be busy until they're dead, basically, which is horrible. So when I say that, keeping that in mind, but for those of us who have the privilege and the luxury of not being busy and we still do it, it's like, that's probably why everyone's crabby. Like, I don't know, just throwing it out there. That was an astrologer hat off, person hat on opinion, straight up personal opinion. Anyway, I digress. Does anyone have any other last call? I'm going to start talking about Uranus retrograde. I did not go through so many transits. So if there were any that you were hoping I talked about today that I did not, please let me know in the chat and I will make sure that we get into that as I wrap up. All right. So on the 28th, Uranus will station retrograde until January 27th of 2024. And it is going to do so. I just want to see what degree it's at. Yeah, it's at 23 degrees here. And then by the time it stations direct, it'll be at 19 degrees of Taurus. So you can think about your own personal placements. If you have placements at like, especially that 23 or 19 degree and Uranus is stationing right on that type of place, it could be more loud for you. But this is the one I would love to crowdsource on this and collect all of your thoughts on this. I'm curious what the other astrology enthusiasts, students, astrologers feel like. Uranus retrograde is so weird because retrogrades are inconsistent, are unstable, but Uranus is inconsistent and unstable. That's its job. So is this like a double negative or a double positive? Do they cancel each other out? That's what I'm going to be watching for. Does it mean if the planet of instability is inconsistently retrograde or whatever, does that mean the instability is now inconsistent? Which means there's less instability, maybe? Maybe Uranus is less effective. So planets that are retrograde are sometimes less effective. So what is it for Uranus to be less effective? Fewer interruptions, fewer disruptions, but also maybe fewer innovations, fewer changes, fewer breakthroughs, fewer insights. When we're doing change, trying new things, experimenting, it tends to be disruptive. We have to do things differently if we want to try this cool new thing. I imagine with a retrograde, there's less of that happening. So even I was wondering too, if changes we're trying to make, and I don't want to be discouraging at all, because I mean, outer planets are retrograde like 5 months out of the year or something, depending on who they are. And so I don't care mostly, because you cannot tell me that like half of every year, the outer planets are messing with us that much in that kind of retrograde way. But I am much more interested in the stations, because the stations simply make these planets louder. So, talking about the retrograde as a whole, a lot of the things I just said kind of pertaining to that, maybe Uranus and its functionality or whatever it's doing, whatever it does, it's going to be doing less of that, for better or for worse. Different idea. During the stations, Uranus just is loud. So that's different. So I feel like on the 28th, we should be watching out for really loud Uranus stuff, loud insights, really big surprises, big changes, very jarring things. And again, for better or for worse, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. But that is happening. I guess the last thought I had about it was just that if we are trying to make changes during this time, and this is the part I didn't want to be discouraging with, is that maybe it'll be harder to make changes. Maybe the changes that we're trying to make won't stick. I'm not sure. So if you are making changes in the next, 6 months, we'll see what Uranus has to say about that. But especially all of this pertains to your Taurus place. So for me, I'm going to be looking for these types of themes of what is the rate of change. So that is a different thing. There's change, and then there's rate of change. That's a physics thing. So perhaps it's not that change isn't happening. It's not that change is impossible, but perhaps when Uranus is retrograde, some of that is slowed down or itself changed in some way. So as you can see, like I kind of tied myself up into knots trying to think about this, because it feels a little paradoxical, a little double negative-y. So I want to know what y'all think about this. What do you think of when you think of Uranus stationing, when you think of Uranus going retrograde? You can share it in the comments below if you're listening to this afterwards. That is like, I want to crowdsource because I'm curious. Last thing, Pisces full moon. Well, this one, we have to think about the new moon that we just talked about. So we had that Leo new moon on the, nope, not that one. On the 16th. And then that is going to intent something about the Leo place. New chapters, resets, new intentions. This is what I want in my Leo place. And it probably has to do with Venus, values, vices, all of those, beauty, pleasure, preferences, the things we enjoy, right? Our desires. So new chapters with that. Then 2 weeks later, we have a full moon with Saturn in Pisces. So then this sounds like, okay, whatever you're starting in Leo, now we're getting a look at the Pisces part of our chart and seeing what this says. Like, okay, in Leo, we maybe are intenting on XYZ. In Pisces, how does this place play in? Let's use this hypothetical Aquarius rising person. Maybe they want some new chapters in their partnership life, whether that be romantic or business partners who they're sharing themselves with for the most part. In the second house, considering, okay, maybe you want this certain type of seventh house experience. What resources do you have? Do you have time? Do you have money, energy? Are you okay? Are you getting your needs met? What are your needs? All of those second house questions. What skills or talents do you need to develop in order to make this Leo part of your chart work? In the seventh house, in this case, second house being skills and talents. With Saturn here, there's certainly a discussion about what is realism, perhaps in like whatever we're starting or wanting to pursue from Leo, we have to recognize some limitations, or we have to recognize the certain structures that need to be in place for that to happen. Healthy boundaries, any of those, saying no to things, in order to set the new chapters, do the reset buttons that we want to do. What needs to happen in Pisces? And it probably has to do with Saturn. So, very interestingly, right before the moon exactly is opposite the sun, it does have a conversation with Saturn. So it's like moon enters into Pisces, and it's like immediately faced with limitations, structures, barriers, delays. And then it has its full moon. Oh, where am I? I'm in the wrong month. But excuse me. Uno momento. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. So moon, right before it goes full, has this conversation with Saturn. You can see it here. And then the moon is going to do the full moon thing. And we're going to have our realizations. We're going to share what we want to share, do all of our activities out there in the world. But we're feeling maybe a bit morose, a bit more kind of sober about things. Now, right after the full moon, this actually feels a little bit better. We get moon talking to Jupiter by a nice sextile saying, hey, here's these limitations. Here's what we're realizing about this Virgo and Pisces axes again. And actually there's help though. So this moon is ruled by and witnessed by Jupiter, who can see in there and say, okay, I know there's these boundaries that you want to make, or these systems or structures you want to work with. In the Pisces area of your chart, you actually have some resources, some goodwill, some hope, some help, whatever it is in the Taurus part of your chart. And then after they talk to Jupiter, then they're going to talk to Mercury. And then that is like, okay, we just got the little burst of hope or faith from Jupiter, or, hey, here's what you do have in terms of resources. And then Mercury can be like, okay, now that we know that, here's how we can adjust the little tasks or actions or thoughts or considerations that need to be had that are a little bit more detail oriented about this whole thing. So it starts off, this full moon experience, I think at the end of August, it starts off a little heavy, and it does get lighter as it continues. So just realize that if it starts off a little bit, hang in there. I think that's pretty much all I had to say. Very insightful full moon. And then we got one more month in this quarter, and then we'll go to the fourth quarter. Can't believe it. So with that, let me see if there's any final requests. Hello, Tara. Welcome. That's all right. This is why I do the recording. Yeah, very casual. Reverend Kai says, since Uranus is visible at the opposition, I think that the RX beginning or the retrograde beginning, waiting for the fruit of insights, disruptions to become visible. The station I associate with more intense lightning strikes. Yeah, intense lightning strikes. I love that too, how you put that. I love that. Thank you for that. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, because Uranus is visible like I was just saying, I don't use Uranus like in any kind of visible sense because I'm like, effectively speaking, like, usually we can't see it for most purposes. I'm like, no, I'm never going to consider Uranus a visible planet. However, at least for astrological purposes. But it is really interesting to consider. It is how that plays into everything. Fertilizer bomb explosion as Uranus stations, says Kebabs. I mean, I hope not. Actually, it fits. If it fits, it sits. That would be, I mean, because we got Taurus, Jupiter, and Uranus. Taurus, Earth, like the land, and thinking about, cultivating fields. And part of that growing process is spreading manure everywhere, right? Usually the season before, I think afterwards. And then, yeah, just ammonia, methane, too much of a good thing with Jupiter there, and Uranus. We don't like that. How close are they going to be? Not that we're not predicting explosions, but we'll see. It's going to be pretty close, honestly. Yeah, like 5 degrees, 6 degrees, right? Jupiter's clipping along by then. Wow. Yeah, 8 degrees away. So they're 8 degrees away, but they are applying. When is that? That's not till September. So I guess we'll have to wait till, oh no, they never do meet. I'm going to say no explosions. They never meet. Maybe it'll be okay. But still, I like that idea. Like, what is the archetypal? Just like, yeah, sudden lightning strike, maybe based on too much of a good thing. So I guess be careful, but I digress. Anything else, everybody? I think that's good. I think we did it. We did the bare bones version. We got out in 1 hour and 15 minutes. I am going to sit. It's a bad time to start having a standing desk. I'm going to take a bath and pretend like this day doesn't exist. The timestamps will be available in maybe 72 hours. It might be longer than that if I'm being real with you, just for this time. But I do really like having timestamps, and I always re-listen to it anyway to check for errors that I might have said. So there's no reason why I shouldn't do timestamps, but have patience. But thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Thank you for your time, for your contributions and questions, and your support. When I thought about doing this sick and like maybe doing a bad job of it accidentally or doing less, I was like, that's okay. I have the nicest people. I have the nicest people. They're so supportive. I feel very supported. So thank you for always being so nice. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, book a reading. Still doing research. I've almost got 50 people. I really need to kick her down and get done with it. So please help. And discount codes, we said them at the beginning. Go back to the beginning. Astrology podcast, 10% off for readings. Definitely salt bath, always a salt bath. Thank you for the healing wishes. Yeah, it should literally, and I have my period. It should not be allowed. This should not be allowed to happen in the physical body at the same time. If there's going to be viruses, I should be allowed to be in peak physical condition to meet them. Absolutely not fair. But again, my spirits are high. I'm going to make my own mentholatum. You can find me at www.aligninglightastrology.com. You can find me here on YouTube. I'm barely on Instagram, but sometimes I am, at Aligning Light Astrology, and I am at Aligning Lights on Twitter, which everybody knows Twitter's crazy now. So I'm just going to keep being on there more because I'm a Luddite and I'm just not great at early adoption of technology. So I'm like, I just figured this one out. Please let me stay. But now it's like X or whatever, which is I just made a tweet about it. I'll never stop calling them tweets, and I will never stop calling it Twitter, but it's just so impersonal. Like I usually don't comment on like pop culture stuff because I usually just don't give a shit that much. And it's boring to me mostly, but like this Elon Musk thing, he's insane. But what I noticed is like when he made his corporation called X, the owner of Twitter, and now he's calling Twitter X, like Space X and all the other things. It's like, you could not put in less effort. you could not be more lazy. You could not be just like more thoughtless in doing it. It's like, oh, I'll just name it whatever I named all the other shit. It's like, yeah, okay. So, we know what Twitter is for this person. I don't know if anyone has any good ideas about other social media platforms. A lot of people are on Mastodon now. These like server ones, they seem weird and slow. I don't understand them. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Like, I'm actually kind of curious what social media everyone is more prone to. I think most of us end up on Instagram. I don't do Facebook, but put it in the comment below. Like, if you have a preference about where you'd like to see me, I'm never leaving YouTube, but if you've got other preferences, let me know. I'll try to meet them. Okay, friends, that's all I got. I hope you all have an excellent August. Do your best, keep things open-ended, be flexible, give each other the benefit of the doubt. It's going to be a really reorganizing month. So whatever does happen in August, whatever happens in September, by October, we're going to have the eclipses kind of bookending. And then by November, our lives are probably going to look a little bit different. Of course, they will. We don't need astrology to say that. But certainly, like, the next several months are pretty changey. So keep things open-ended. That is my biggest, widest advice that I think